I walked into the hallway holding a basket of clean laundry when Dad said it. Calmly, almost casually. "We already promised your room to your cousin Rowan." Froze. The basket nearly slipped from my hands. I was still living in that room. My things were inside. My door stood open behind me, my bed visible through the gap. Mom avoided my eyes, suddenly fascinated by the kitchen tiles. Rowan stood smirking by the staircase, arms crossed like he'd already won something. I felt the floor fall out from under me. My throat tightened. Dad cleared his throat and continued as if he'd just mentioned dinner plans. "You'll need to clear out by the end of the week." His voice was steady, final. I whispered, "Why now?" The words barely made it past my lips. Rowan answered instead of them. "Because they need someone reliable in this house." His grin widened. Mom flinched but said nothing. Dad just nodded. That moment, standing there with my laundry in my own home, I realized I'd become a guest in a place I'd lived my entire life. The walls suddenly felt like they were closing in, and I couldn't breathe properly. Rowan explained everything the next morning over breakfast. He needed my room because he was moving here permanently. Dad and Mom acted like the decision was carved in stone, like I was temporary in my own house. They spoke around me, not to me. Rowan mentioned needing space for his workspace, his gaming setup, his collection of vintage records. He talked about my room like it was already his. Then he slipped. He mentioned my scholarship application, the one I'd told only my parents about 2 weeks ago. The one I'd been nervous about, the one that meant everything to me. "Must be tough waiting on that Portland scholarship," he said, stirring his coffee. My spine straightened. How did he know the city? I'd never mentioned Portland to anyone except Mom and Dad. They'd promised to keep it private until I heard back. Rowan caught my stare and shrugged, that same annoying smirk on his face. That night I couldn't sleep. I pressed my ear against my bedroom wall, listening to the house settle. Mom's voice drifted up from downstairs, quiet but clear. "Just don't tell her yet." My blood ran cold. What else were they hiding? I decided to pack early, trying to take control of something. But when I reached for the box under my bed, the one with all my important documents, it was gone. I tore through my closet, checked under furniture, searched every corner. Nothing. Panic clawed at my chest. When I asked Mom at dinner, she pretended not to know anything about it. "Maybe you moved it somewhere and forgot," she suggested, her voice too light, too casual. Rowan piped up from across the table. "I found a box in the attic yesterday. Heavy thing. Might be yours." He led me upstairs, taking his time on each step. The attic smelled like dust and old wood. There sat my box, tape torn open, contents clearly disturbed. Inside were things that should have been untouched. My journals from middle school, financial letters from the bank, scholarship information, printed emails. My hands shook as I sifted through them. Someone had gone through my history long before today. Pages were out of order. A journal had a bookmark I'd never used. Then I found it, a printed email, crisp and new. The subject line read, "Moving out plans." I stared at it, confused and angry. I never sent any email about moving out. Ever. The email was addressed to my dad. It was supposedly from me, dated 6 months ago. The message said I planned to move out at 18, and that I understood the room would be needed for family. Every word was wrong. I never wrote this. My writing style was completely different, the phrasing too formal, the tone too accepting. I stormed downstairs, my heart pounding. Dad was in his office, typing on his computer. I slammed the paper on his desk. "I never sent this." He barely looked up from his screen. "You did. You told me you wanted independence." His voice was tired, dismissive, like I was bothering him with something small. "Dad, I never. You knew this was coming. Don't act surprised now." My stomach dropped. This room replacement wasn't sudden. It had been planned for months. They'd been preparing my exit while I slept under their roof, trusting them completely. That evening I heard jingling outside my door. Metal scraping against metal. Opened it fast. Rowan stood there, a silver key in his hand, measuring tape in the other. He was measuring my walls, taking notes in a small notebook. "Just getting ready," he said with that grin. He already had a key to my bedroom. My room. My private space. 2 days later, I found Mom in the basement. She was feeding papers into the old shredder, the machine grinding loudly in the concrete space. She jumped when she saw me, her hand flying to her chest like I'd caught her doing something wrong. "You scared me." I looked at the pile beside the shredder. Birth record copies, school forms, old report cards with gold stars, photos of me as a child smiling at birthday parties. "Why are you shredding those?" My voice cracked with emotion. She wiped her hands on her jeans, not meeting my eyes. "Making space for Rowan's boxes. He has a lot of belongings." I stepped closer, my legs feeling weak. Among the shredded pieces scattered on the floor, a torn corner caught my eye. Cream-colored paper with official letterhead. Picked it up carefully. It was part of a financial statement. My name was printed at the top in bold letters. And below it a large sum of money. $7,000. I'd never seen this statement before in my life. I'd never received $7,000. Mom's face went completely pale. "That's old. From years ago. Nothing important," she stammered. But her hands were shaking badly. "Who took it? Where did that money go? Why was she destroying the evidence?" I tracked the torn documents' letterhead to the Youth Success Foundation. I called them the next morning, my hands sweating as I dialed. A kind woman named Tabitha checked my file on her computer. Yes, the grant was issued 2 years ago. Full amount, $7,000. Accepted and signed for in June. My hands gripped the phone tighter. "Signed by who?" "Let me check the records. The signature on file is yours." But I never signed anything. I never even knew this grant existed. I drove to their office downtown, my mind racing the entire way. Tabitha showed me the paperwork in a manila folder. The signature looked rushed, shaky, similar to my dad's handwriting when he was in a hurry. But the initials weren't mine. They were R.C. Rowan Clark, my cousin's initials, clear as day. They'd used my grant money to support Rowan's move here. I felt sick to my stomach. Everything clicked into place. His new laptop he'd been showing off, the expensive gaming equipment he'd been bragging about, the family loan my parents casually mentioned last year. It was my money. Stolen. Forged. Used without my permission. When I got home, I found Rowan in the kitchen making a sandwich. "You used my grant money," I said flatly, standing in the doorway. He didn't even pretend to be surprised or guilty. He just leaned back against the counter, smiled that cruel smile and said, "Prove it." That night, Rowan found me in the hallway outside my room. He stood too close, invading my personal space, his voice low and threatening. "They chose the child who gives them more." My breath caught in my throat. He continued, enjoying my fear. "I help with bills. I fix things around the house. I'm useful. What do you do?" His words were knives cutting into me. Then he dropped the real bomb that made my world tilt. "They're rewriting the family will. Transferring your share for stability." My stability. My heart pounded so hard I thought he could hear it. This wasn't just about my room anymore. They were erasing me from the entire family's future. "My room is just the beginning," Rowan said, his eyes cold. He walked away down the hall, whistling a cheerful tune. I stood there, shaking, unable to move. That night I tried to document everything. Dates, conversations, the forged email. I opened my laptop at my desk. The screen lit up with the usual blue glow. But everything was gone. My files, my photos, my carefully organized documents. Wiped completely clean. The desktop was empty except for the default background image. Someone had reset it entirely. I checked the login history in the settings. Last access. Yesterday, 3:47 p.m. I was at work then, miles away. Someone had been in my room. Again, going through my things. I wanted to scream until my voice gave out. Instead, I made a phone call to someone who could help. Alora arrived 2 days later at my house. She was a tech investigator, recommended by a trusted friend who knew my situation. She wore thin glasses and carried a sleek black laptop bag. She didn't waste time with small talk. "Show me everything." I explained the wiped laptop, the forged emails, the missing documents, all of it. She worked quietly at my desk, running complicated software I didn't understand, her fingers moving quickly across the keyboard. After an hour of tense silence, she looked up at me. "Someone's been accessing your accounts remotely. Not just your laptop, your email, your cloud storage, even your banking app." My stomach turned with nausea. "From where?" "Inside this house. The same network." She showed me the log on her screen. Pages of unauthorized access. Multiple login attempts over the past year, all successful. But the IP address wasn't from Rowan's devices. She cross-checked everything carefully. The source was my mother's tablet. Mom had been forwarding my emails, downloading my private documents, tracking my passwords and activity. For over a year. Even private messages to my academic advisor about my future plans. Everything I thought was safe. "There's one more thing," Alora said, her voice serious. She handed me a small USB drive. "I found this buried in the shared network drive. It's labeled Plan." I stared at the tiny device in my palm, feeling its weight. My hands shook as I plugged it into my laptop. The file opened slowly. Inside was a folder containing multiple documents, each one more shocking than the last. A draft letter, supposedly from me, saying I wanted to move out and live independently. A formal request transferring my educational savings to family support funds. A typed narrative describing me as unstable and irresponsible, listing incidents that never actually happened. False stories about me missing school, skipping work, making bad choices. Lies. All prepared, formatted, and ready for official use. The last file was a calendar invite. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. Meeting with Grayson and Holt Legal Services. They were going to make this official. They planned to remove me legally before I even knew what was happening to me. I read everything twice, then a third time. My chest felt tight with anger. My parents had built an entire case against me, brick by brick, lie by lie. They'd crafted a version of me that didn't exist. Someone careless, ungrateful, and unstable. Someone who deserved nothing from this family. Closed the laptop slowly. My hands were steady now, no more shaking. I wasn't scared anymore. I was done waiting for them to explain. I gathered every receipt, every email, every printed document Alora had recovered from the deleted files. I placed them carefully in a sealed folder and labeled it A1 with a black marker. Tomorrow they'd expect a victim. They'd get someone else entirely. The law office smelled like expensive leather and old wood polish. My parents sat on one side of the long conference table. Rowan sat beside them, looking confident. I sat alone on the other side, my folder in front of me. The lawyer, Mr. Brennan, reviewed the documents they'd brought in a neat stack. Dad explained calmly how I'd expressed a desire for independence, and how they wanted to support my transition by reallocating resources to someone more stable. Mom nodded along, her face painted with false concern and worry. Mr. Brennan looked at me across the table. "Do you agree with this arrangement?" I placed my folder on the table with a soft thud. "I'd like you to see something first." His eyebrows raised with curiosity. He opened it carefully. The room went completely silent except for the sound of turning pages. My parents froze in their chairs. Rowan's confident face went pale white. Inside was everything. The forged emails with metadata showing they were created on Dad's computer, the grant records with Rowan's initials clearly visible, the bank statement showing the stolen $7,000, the login history from Mom's tablet showing year-long spying, screenshots of the deleted files Alora had recovered, and the plan document they'd prepared to erase me. Mr. Brennan's professional expression changed to shock. He looked at my parents with new eyes. Did you create these documents without your daughter's knowledge? Dad's mouth opened slowly. Nothing came out. The lawyer closed the folder firmly. I'm halting these proceedings immediately. This requires investigation. The next 2 weeks moved incredibly fast. Mr. Brennan referred me to another firm specializing in family financial disputes and fraud. Investigations began immediately with legal experts. The youth grant forgery was clear. Bank records didn't lie about signatures. The educational savings account they'd tried to transfer was legally mine, untouchable without my written consent. The forged emails were traced back to Dad's IP address with timestamps. Every single lie unraveled like a sweater pulled apart. They begged to talk as a family and work this out. I refused without my lawyer present in the room. Dad showed up at my door twice, looking tired and desperate. I didn't open it either time. Mom sent long text messages about misunderstandings and family love. I didn't respond to any of them. The truth was simple and painful. They'd chosen Rowan over me, money over honesty, convenience over their own daughter. The youth grant had to be returned by them. The full $7,000, plus interest for 2 years. My educational savings reverted entirely to me, with new legal protections added by the court. And Rowan. He was ordered to vacate the house immediately. The house had my name on partial ownership, something I'd never known until the lawyers found it. They couldn't remove me from anything. 3 weeks after everything exploded, Mom sent one last message. You won't really leave us, right? I didn't answer. Some questions don't deserve responses. I returned home one final time to pack my things properly. On my terms this time. The house was quiet and empty feeling. Dad's office door was closed tight. Mom's car wasn't in the driveway. Rowan was gone, moved out the week before to somewhere else. I climbed the stairs slowly, running my hand along the railing. My room stood exactly as I'd left it that morning. The bed I'd slept in since childhood. The desk where I'd done homework for 12 years straight. The window overlooking the backyard where I used to watch summer storms roll in. They tried to give this away. Tried to erase me from the space I'd grown up in, where I'd laughed and cried and dreamed. I packed my books, my clothes, my precious memories. Everything that truly mattered fit into 4 cardboard boxes. I stood in the doorway one last time, looking at the empty room, the one they'd promised to someone else while I still lived there. You didn't choose me, I whispered to the silence. I'm choosing myself. The house legally remained half mine. They couldn't change that without my consent. And I'd never give it. Not after this betrayal. I closed the door gently. Not in anger or rage. In closure and peace. I walked down the stairs with my boxes, and stepped into the afternoon sun. I didn't look back.